Welcome back to my channel. Excuse the morning voice, first time I'm talking. Kids are already up. I have a few minutes that they'll kind of be settled so I can probably tame my hair. So while I do that, I thought that this contact is not gonna cooperate. But while I just go through my hair quickly, I figured I would start telling you a little bit about my pregnancy journey with Honor. So, oh goodness. If you haven't seen or heard my story of Everly, then that I believe is still up on my channel. She was just like a tiny little thing in the video, but for Honor, sorry, I knew like once we had our first child that I didn't want to spend so long like trying to conceive a second child, because when we went through our IVF process, we had 4 embryos, so Everly is one of those. And we still have 3 little embryos that are frozen. And so I knew, like, because it took us a while to get Everly, that I didn't want to be trying for like another year or plus for a second child. So I said, and I said this before we even like gave birth to Everly, but I was pregnant with her. I said, like, probably give like about 6 months of trying naturally before like going back to our fertility clinic and starting another round of an embryo transfer. So I'd say probably like around when Everly was like 4 months old, like we started trying, and it was taking like a few months. I'd say like right around the 6-month mark, I was like, okay, this was, my timing, and my husband agreed. So we set up appointments to go back to our fertility clinic, and Everly was, I want to say like, oh gosh, to go back and do the math of this, she had to have been like around 9 months old when we went back to our fertility clinic. And I remember like we had to trade off in the car so that each one of us could go inside and like have blood drawn and then talk about like the next steps and everything like that. So we were already getting the ball rolling with trying to conceive like a second child. So I go in there, I get my blood drawn, they do like a interior, I guess I could say, ultrasound to check everything out and make sure that like I've healed up inside and all of that. So we get all of that done, get our blood work, everything looks good. This I remember was like on a Thursday and my cycle was due, and I've had enough interior like ultrasounds to know that like if they're done around my cycle time, like usually I'm leaving the office and it's like jump started my cycle, or like that night or like the next morning. So I remember leaving there and I was like, okay, like excited. We were gonna get to, have a frozen embryo transfer. And I remember going home and I'm like, okay, this is weird. Like no signs of my cycle, cool. Friday comes, same thing. I'm thinking like, okay, this is really strange. Like maybe I'm just a little bit stressed about everything. And so I let Friday come and go. Saturday comes, same thing. I'm thinking like, okay, like surely something will happen. I wasn't feeling like any symptoms of anything, and I also I didn't know if I would be able to conceive naturally after having Everly. It was just like a hope and a prayer, because I've heard so many stories of women who have like endometriosis, and once they have their first baby, then it kind of like clears out their uterus and everything to be able to naturally conceive a second. So I had some hope, but I also knew like what were the chances that could be me. So my cycle wasn't coming yet. I remember Saturday, like one of my best friends, she had her baby shower, so we were celebrating with her and everything. Sunday morning comes and still nothing. And I was like, okay, this is a little bit suspicious. It's not like my body to hold off on my cycle, especially after like an internal ultrasound. So I remember Brandon was out grocery shopping. So I had like a small window of time that I could test like in private to see like what was going on. So I remember like I took the test. I didn't even think to like record or anything because I'm like, there's no way, like my cycle just has to be late. There's no way that this can, be happening to me. And so I remember looking at the strip on the counter and I was just in shock. Like no tears, no words, just pure shock. And I'm thinking, how like this happened to me? And so I was shaking and everything. I think I waited like another hour because Brandon still hadn't come back. And I was like, I have to take another test. Like I need to see if this is truly like positive. Mind you, like I could see 2 lines pretty clearly on this test. I just wanted to be sure. And so I took another test, same thing, came out positive. And I was like, okay. I need to wait. I'm gonna take another one like tonight when he goes to sleep, like I'll test again. So I do the same thing. And after I think the first or second test in the morning, I texted one of my friends and I was like, I think I'm pregnant. Like, I think this is positive. She was like, no way. And so she was the only one that I had told. Then the following morning, I woke up. And the good thing is, like, I get up before Brandon with the kids and stuff. So I remember I was up with Everly and I had already like hidden a test downstairs so that I could take it. And I remember taking it. I was like, no way, it was positive. And before I knew I was pregnant, like we had already purchased like a little onesie that said promoted to big sister for Everly, because we were purchasing it like in faith that we would be able to tell our families like in the coming months. We weren't going to tell them that we were going through another round of like an embryo transfer, but we wanted to be able to surprise them still. So we had purchased this onesie. And so that morning, like after I tested and it was positive, I was like, well, I guess I'm using this onesie on Brandon. So after I got like that 3rd or 4th positive test, I put Everly in that onesie and then we just like hung out and waited for Brandon to wake up. And once he woke up, he came down the stairs and we were out back and he was so surprised. He couldn't even like process. He's like, wait, are you serious? And he was reading Everly's shirt. And I was like, yep, I didn't think that I was going to be using this onesie on you, but I'm using it on you, I guess. I said, like, I'm pregnant. I showed him, like, the tests and everything. And then, sure enough, like, went to the doctors, confirmed pregnancy. And I think we hid the pregnancy from our families for a few weeks, because there was like other big family things happening in the coming weeks. So we didn't want to like take away from any of their thunder and their special moments. So we hid the pregnancy. It was super hard because like it wasn't a hard pregnancy, but I was constantly nauseous. Honor did not really let me eat a lot. Whatever I did eat, like it could or could not affect my stomach. I've struggled in the past with like severe IBS problems, so TMI, but he really like challenged that and it was hard for me to eat. I lost a little bit more weight in the first trimester than I had with Everly. My energy was way down. It was hard, especially like pregnancy with a toddler. It was super difficult. So yeah, we surprised our families on Everly's first birthday, actually. They had no idea. We put Everly like in her promoted to big sister onesie, even though I had like a cute like a first birthday outfit, but I wanted everyone to see the news first. That way I didn't have to hide like how I was feeling throughout her birthday party. And everyone's reaction was just priceless. We have the videos and I go back to watch them from time to time because it was on no one's radar that we were going to be trying, that I could have been pregnant or anything like that. So we truly like got to have that surprise element that we didn't really get with Everly, because our families knew we were going through IVF. They knew like when we would get tested and all these things. So we truly got to surprise our family, surprise everyone. And through the whole pregnancy, like I just still couldn't fully process that I was pregnant with a second kid. And then to find out it was a son, I was just like overjoyed. But I feel like Honor's whole pregnancy was just like a dream, and like trying to process that he came to be. I know it was God's plan, because he heard me saying like 6 months of natural, and then I'm going to, you know, the fertility clinic, and God was like, on the 6th month I will give you your child. So I feel like I'm still, even though Honor's like 9 months old, I feel like I'm still processing the fact that I had a second kid and that it was natural. So it was just a beautiful like God story for him. Even Everly's story is a God story too in her own way, but it's just crazy to say like I have my miracle baby through IVF, but now I also have like my miracle natural baby after infertility and years of trying to figure out why we weren't able to conceive. So that's part 1 too. My little son, I gotta go take a break, get everyone situated for breakfast time, and then I'll come back to tell you about like how my labor and delivery went. Back. Breakfast is done. Have another little pocket of time to finish getting ready. So, I know I was talking about next my labor and delivery. So I think I was 39 weeks and 2 or 3 days when I started like to feel the contractions. So I remember waking up, like it was a Saturday morning, and I remember waking up and having like contractions, timing them. I was feeling them like a little bit, but nothing that was too concerning for me, and nothing that was time worthy. And like earlier that week before I gave birth, I was timing because we had like probably 2 nights of like false alarms where we sat in the car in the driveway and we were like, okay, is now the time? Like, do we go now? And so Saturday though, I kind of like pushed it till almost the last minute because I didn't want to have to like be sent home if we went and it wasn't go time. So I remember like I took Everly to the playground. We were hanging out, playing. We went like on a walk. And when I got back, Brandon, I forget where he was. It might be another, like he was grocery shopping or maybe he was getting a haircut. I forget. And so I remember I was like feeling contractions and I told him, I was like, I think today is gonna be the day. I started like seeing the same signs that I had seen with Everly of like pre-labor. And so we decided like, all right, let's go to the hospital. So I think we got there like around, I don't know, maybe 4 o'clock, I want to say, and checked in. I got checked out and like I wasn't, I think maybe I was like 2 or 3 centimeters dilated, I forget. And so we walked around, we went to go get some dinner because I was thinking like, if this is, you know, the night that I'm delivering, like I am starving. It was almost dinner time. And so I remember we got like a chicken sandwich and french fries and we were eating. And while we were eating, like I was feeling contractions, but I remember specifically like sitting on the edge of my chair and looking at Brandon while we were eating. And I was like, this is my last meal. this is it, because things were starting to pick up. And sure enough, like I inhaled my sandwich and it was time for like the walk of like trying to get things going and grooving while I am having like contractions. I could feel them starting to pick up in like their intensity, but I was still able to like talk through them, breathe through them, everything. So once I couldn't breathe through them anymore, like we went back to the ER and we checked back in, and that night it was so packed that like I was sitting close to Brandon, and I remember he asked me like, do you need me to do anything? And I was like, no, just, you know, just sit there, because while I'm having these contractions, like nothing's gonna help me but me focusing on like breathing and just being calm. So like, I'm sure people in the waiting room were like, why isn't her husband helping her? To his defense, he asked and I said no, because I got it. There's nothing to do except just let me like breathe. So I remember every time like a contraction came, I was like bracing myself and standing up and swaying and squatting and breathing, doing all the things in front of all these strangers because they couldn't get a room. Like I remember there was a girl across from me and she had her laptop and she was on her phone. She's like, yeah, I hope my midwife can make it. And she's like, oh, hold on, I'm having a contraction right now. And she's like kind of talking through, and I'm like, okay, like I was farther along from her and I was like, oh, they're coming for her, you know? And then I think there was someone even like ahead of where I was, and I was like, oh gosh, like we're all waiting here for, you know, a room together, and it was just so full. So I labored like a lot in the waiting room, and then once they finally got me back into a bed just to like get checked before being sent to the labor and delivery room, contractions were like super picking up. Like I think I really had to go to the bathroom, and I could hardly like walk across the hall to open the door to go to the bathroom, do everything. And then even like coming out of the bathroom, I could hardly walk too, like having to stop every few seconds and like breathe and brace for the contraction and everything. And so I am so sorry, like morning voice. Tough. Let's ignore all of that. So I went back into the room and I was laying on the bed. I'm missing a brush. I was laying on the bed and they were coming in like, we're so sorry, we're working on getting a room, and like contractions were picking up even stronger for me. And I was starting to like look at the people coming in the room, and I'm like, I can't do this. Like I need an epidural like right now, because it was getting so painful. And they kept coming in, we're getting you ready, whatever. There's no beds upstairs right now. Like as soon as there's one, like we'll get you in and whatever. So I got checked, I think again downstairs, and they said, you're 8 centimeters along. I was like, oh my gosh. I started to like freak out because I was thinking, I'm about to deliver this boy with no medication. And like, granted, I would love to try that, but then I was feeling like I was at 8 centimeters then. I was like, I don't have the energy to push out. And I was like getting so worried through my contractions. I wasn't even able to like stay quiet anymore through my contractions, which with Everly, I never got to that point because I got an epidural, I think around 4 centimeters, 4 or 5. And, I started like the moaning and the yelling because it was like my body lost all control of trying to stay quiet through contractions, and all I could do was like moan and yell and be loud. So I think that like alerted the emergency department, like, okay, this girl is like close, she could push this baby out. And like before I knew it, I was getting wheeled upstairs, and the whole way I'm like moaning out and everything, because I just couldn't like keep quiet. And I remember getting upstairs and like getting into a room and onto a bed, and then they got the epidural put in me. And like up until that point, I couldn't talk to anybody, I couldn't look at anybody. It was hard, painful. And so once everything settled in, the epidural kicked in, I remember looking over at my nurse and I was like, "Hi, I'm Angelique, nice to meet you. Sorry about who you saw before." And she was laughing. She's like, "No, you were doing a great job. You were like breathing through and everything." I said, I was getting worried that I was about to push this baby out with no epidural. She's like, "Yep, I planned for mine to be, epidurals, and I didn't make it for either one of them. I pushed them out natural." I was like, "Oh no." So she was just kind of talking to me. I was talking to her. I think I was like in a room by like 9 or 10 o'clock. And then by midnight, it was go time. Like, it went so fast. I don't know if it's because I progressed like farther along naturally, or I don't know, like Honor wanted out. So I remember like a midwife came in. She was a literal angel. Like, if I could have her again in the future, God willing, like he blesses us with another kid, but if I could have her again, like I would seek her out, because she was so amazing. Like, she sat on the edge of my bed and she's like, "Okay, we're gonna start to push, like you're ready." And so she sits on the edge of the bed. I didn't have to put my legs like into the stirrups or anything. And she tells me, to start pushing. And at first I joked because it was like midnight, maybe like 12:15 when we were getting set up. And I was like, "Oh, my daughter was born like in the 12-ish hour, but in the afternoon." And she's like, "Oh, we could hang on a few more minutes and like, your son and her can share like their time, just AM and PM." And I joked, I was like, "Nah, it's okay." Like, I thought about it for a second. I was like, "No, like he's ready to come out. Let's get him out now." So I remember she sat down, got me all prepared and everything. And literally, like, this is God. I'm thankful, because I know not everyone's story is like this, but it was like 4 minutes of pushing and he came right out. And she's like, "All right, awesome, no tears, nothing." I was like, "No tears?" Like, I couldn't believe that she just simply sat on the edge of the bed, put her hands where they needed to be, and like guided Honor out pretty much. Because I mean, with Everly, like she was guided out, but I was stitched up. Like, I had the whole 9, the stirrups and everything. So I couldn't believe that like I had just delivered my son with none of that. And he came like super fast. So that is how I birthed Honor. And my postpartum this time was so much better. I don't know if it's because it's like I knew what to expect, to a sense. Like, I know every kid is different, every postpartum is different, but I feel like it helped me knowing what to expect. And then also another part is I stayed active throughout like my entire pregnancy. So I was working out, I was walking, I was stretching, doing all of those things. And so I found it to be really like much easier than with Everly, whereas my body was so sore with her. It took me a while to be able to walk like at a normal pace again, or on my own. I remember like the night that I gave birth to Honor, the next day I was walking around the hotel. Wow, feels like a hotel at the hospital. But I was walking around the hospital room like pacing, because I was tired of sitting. I was able to go to the bathroom by myself. I just felt so much better, so much lighter. And even like when I gave birth to Everly, I cried because of like the emotions. I just had a kid. But Honor, it was like still shock of like, I helped, like, I got to help pull him out and like put him on my chest, but like I never cried, and I was like expecting to have those emotions, but it just felt still so surreal. And it still does every time I look at him. Like, how are you here? And we always joke, my husband and I, that like he is so strong and so determined. And we say from the start, because that boy came naturally when we had been trying for years and nothing was happening naturally. Everly kind of paved the way. But like we say, he's strong from the start. Like, he was ready to be here, ready to be in this world, because this little boy is determined like nobody's business. So it's still kind of mind-blowing to me that he's here, but way better postpartum experience, and just support all around. It's been great to have. But yeah, that is the story of my little boy. and how he came to be. Total surprise and shock to us all, and still like such a shock, but overall such a huge blessing. Hope you guys enjoyed hearing this little like story time with me about my little baby boy, and I hope to see you in another video. Have a great day, great night, great everything. Bye.